Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So I always like reacting to these types of videos because I've been talking about this for years. And now in the age of video, everybody posting videos of themselves on places like YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, wherever it might be. And you get to hear from the people, I've read about people making these type of comments for a long time, but now because of Instagram and YouTube, I get to hear what they have to say about this, right? Like I said, I've read about this ever since I started, following all things Brazilian, I would say. And so when I hear these type of videos, it's always funny to me because of Brazil's image, right? It brings into question a lot of, we'll say, classifications in terms of how people see themselves as race and how they are regarded by other people, both within Brazil and outside of Brazil. So today's video, the moment when a white Brazilian discovers he is not white in the United States. The title says it all, but let's get into it and just find out what this guy is talking about. Before I get into the video, I'm going to give you a little bit of context. And before I start that, make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the notification bell. And let me give a little context, then I'm going to get directly into the video. Okay, let's check it out. So once again, what comes into question here is the question of what is whiteness. I've always asked the question when Brazilians, particularly when we discuss the controversial implementation of the quota system in Brazil, how do we define what is white? I mean, people have always argued like we can't implement quotas in Brazil because how do we know who's black? There's too many people who's mixed here. At what point does a mixed person become black? Then we've had the controversy of so many people defining themselves as black just to get into the quota system where all of their lives they never saw themselves as black. So then the question becomes, Brazil has never gone by the one drop rule, but then you get white Brazilians because there's quota on the table. Now they'll say, my grandfather, my great grandfather, my grandmother was black, so I'm black. And that sounds ridiculous to me because for years, Brazilians have always said we don't have a one drop rule here. If we had a one drop rule in Brazil, 86 to 90% of Brazilians would be classified as black or non-white. Okay. So what system should we be considering we classify people as white in Brazil? Because oftentimes it's a situation where they might be considered white in Brazil and not in other countries. Sometimes that non-white classification doesn't have anything to do with how they look. The guy in this video I'm going to show you now, I mean, he clearly looks white to me, but it's in the United States when non-Americans come to the U.S. from another country, it's the culture, it's the country they come from, and the accent that they speak with that people will automatically define them as non-white. And it's funny to me because white Brazilians have for so long diminished the idea that Brazil is racist. So I always trip out when you know that you have a certain privilege in Brazil for having whiter skin. You deny that privilege, but then when you get to the United States and you see that you're not defined as white, now all of a sudden, like, to me, if you have the view that everybody is equal despite and regardless of what you look like, I don't know why it's a big deal that you go to the United States and you're not classified as white. But let's get into this. So that's the first point, whiteness in the U.S. versus Brazil. I'd say a large percent of white Brazilians, people who consider themselves white in Brazil, probably would not be considered white in the United States. It's just the way that it is. A large percentage of white Brazilians have either Native American or, African origin ancestry. So whereas in the United States, if people know that they have, or it's been proven that they have, African ancestry, they become non-white automatically if it is known that that person has or if they specifically have African ancestry, no matter how small, of course, the ridiculous one drop rule. Then we get into the question of Latino versus Hispanic versus Brazilian. Now, the way I've always seen this, and some people disagree, a lot of people that I come across, whether they're commenting on my blog or just having a discussion about Brazilians, a lot of people still don't know that Brazilians don't speak Spanish, they speak Portuguese. It was a Portuguese colony in South America. So then they'll label them as Hispanics, but Hispanic should be applied to people who speak Spanish in Latin America. And then some people include people from Spain as Spanish speakers. To me, and some people, I said people disagree. I would say the Brazilians should be considered Latinos because they are from Latin America. But some people disagree. Like, no, Some people only define Latinos as people from Spanish-speaking countries. I don't know. That could be an argument. I know a lot of Brazilians don't like the label of being Latinos. They want to be specifically Brazilians when they live in the United States. They don't want to be defined as a Latino or Hispanic. So who wins out? There's a couple of articles here, and this is an ongoing issue. Are Brazilians Hispanic? Many say yes. Report says the Census Bureau doesn't usually classify Brazilians and others from non-Spanish speaking Latin American countries as Hispanic, but that's now how many Brazilians see it. So apparently, because of a coding error in an annual survey by the U.S. Census Bureau has offered unprecedented insight into how large numbers of Brazilians in the U.S. classify or identify as Hispanic. Analysis by Pew Research Center shows that the coding mistake revealed that at least 416,000 Brazilians, or more than 2/3 of the Brazilians in the United States, identifying as Hispanic in the 2020 American Community Survey. By comparison, only 14,000 Brazilians identified that way in 2019, and only 16,000 Brazilians did so in 2021, years when the coding error wasn't made. This is kind of confusing to me because from what I've always understood, I don't know if they're saying this is a glitch in the system that hasn't been corrected, or they're saying that there are Brazilians who actually classify themselves as Hispanics, because I've never known Brazilians to classify themselves as Hispanic. Let me see here. Since 2000, the Census Bureau hasn't classified Brazilians and other people from non-Spanish speaking countries in Latin America and the Caribbean as Hispanic because of federal government definitions that were last revised in 1997, but are being reconsidered for an update next year. Because of this, if someone marks that they are Hispanic but Brazilian on the survey, they are recoded as not Hispanic when the numbers are crunched. This is intriguing. There's another article where they said, well, the Pew Research Center, who is Hispanic? So they were speaking of numerous countries in Latin America, but specifically Brazilians. Officially, Brazilians are not considered Hispanic or Latino because the federal government's definition, last revised in 1997, applies to only those of Spanish cultural origin. In most cases, people who report their Hispanic or Latino ethnicity as Brazilian in Census Bureau surveys are later reclassified as back-coded as not Hispanic or Latino. This is the same is true for people with origins in Belize, the Philippines, and Portugal. Okay, so this is an intriguing question here. Like I said, as far as I've known, most Brazilians don't classify themselves as Hispanic or Latino. I'm going to have to dig a little bit more into this research because this is kind of new to me, where they're saying that there are a large percentage of Brazilians in the United States who are classifying themselves as Hispanic. You know, as I've said, not being Spanish speaking, I don't understand why a Brazilian would classify themselves, him or herself, as Hispanic. Anyway, the material that I'm doing today actually harks back to another video that I did several months back where this woman made a similar video. I'm in the United States, I'm not considered white, says Brazilian woman. White in Brazil, not in the US, a Brazilian woman's racial reality. So this is what I've said over the years. Probably thousands of Brazilians have spoken about this. They've made videos. They make videos about it now saying, wow, I've been white all my life in Brazil. Now I come to the US and I'm not considered white. So today's video is courtesy of a Instagram channel called Revolução Preta, which means Black Revolution in Portuguese. This is the guy. These are some of his posts. You know, I see he's got the word Wakanda on here. His real name is Augustino Freitas. I guess he lives in Praia Grande, Sao Paulo. I've been there a few times. Nice vacation spot. So he's talking about this guy. He did a reaction to this guy's video, and I was just curious about some of his reactions. So let me do an overdub of this video to hear what this guy is talking about. Remember, the guy on the right is Revolução Preta. He's reacting to the video, and the guy on the left, I don't know what his name is, but it looks like a white guy living somewhere, a white Brazilian guy living in the United States. Let's hear what he had to say about this situation. Guys, and I found out that I'm not white here in the United States. Yes, look at my color and look at the color of the snow. I just left the court here to do some documents. Then they asked me for my color, right? My color, my ethnicity, right? So I said white. They said, no, you're not white. They said, you're not white. I said, what do you mean? Of course I am. Look here. Do you know what he said to me? The guy told me, he said, you're Latino, you're not white. I found out that here in the
descobri
United
aqui nos
States, they
Estados Unidos,
separate who is
eles
Latino and
separaram quem é
whites. They
latino
define as
e os
Americans in this
brancos.
case,
Eles
right?
definem como
Not Hispanics
Americans, no
in this
caso,
case,
né?
right?
Não hispânicos, no caso. Eles têm os
There are
latinos
Latinos
e
and there
tem
are
os
whites.
brancos. Cara, eu
Man,
não
I
sabia
didn't know
disso
that.
e
And
eles
they do
fazem
that.
isso.
It's a certain
É uma certa
discrimination, right?
discriminação, né? No caso,
In
eu
this
acho, mas
case,
eles fazem isso para
I think,
diferenciar,
but they
não
do it to
contar no sistema
differentiate,
também
not to count in the
diferenciar
system and to know
os
how to
brancos puros, vamos
differentiate.
dizer assim, sabe?
The
Mas eu
pure
tinha
whites,
visto
let's say,
sobre isso, mas eu
but
achei
I
que
had
era
already seen
bobagem do
videos
pessoal
about this,
falando
but
aqui
I
nos
thought
Estados
it was
Unidos. Até
nonsense from
que ontem
people talking
aconteceu
here in the
comigo
United
e achei
States
muito
until it happened to
engraçado.
me
Por
today.
isso, se
And
você
I thought, very funny. That's all. So anyway, you heard what that guy had to say. It seemed like he ran into some shock when he comes to the United States and discovered that he's not seen as white. My question or my point with all of this is Brazilians have long said race doesn't matter in Brazil because nós somos todos iguais. We're all equal. So if you're all equal, I don't know what this guy's position is on race. I don't know if he's just he's a guy who's like, look, I just see people as people, or he's somebody who definitely sees, look, I'm white, I'm better than you. I have no idea how this guy thinks, but this thing of being better, being white is something that's all over Brazil. So I wouldn't be surprised if he thought that way. So my question would be, if it doesn't matter, if we're all equal, if we're all the same, why does it matter that you go to the United States and you're not accepted as white unless you see a certain connection to a certain privilege of having white skin? It could always be. As I haven't never, I don't know this guy. I've never talked to him. I can't ask him that question. But I do know in my interactions with some white Brazilians, when I ask them that question, I remember specifically, this had to happen about 15 years ago. I was in Bahia talking to this guy who considered himself white. And, it was like, no problem, blah, blah, blah. But then I asked him, I said, what would you do if you went to the United States and you found out they didn't consider you white? And he just like went into a silent mode. It was like he sat back in his seat and he had no response for that. And it just showed me, okay, you do have a very strong connection to your white identity, or what they call identidade branca. So it's just a question that people have to ask. If you really feel that we don't have racism in the world or in Brazil, or that's a thing in the United States or whatever, if you travel to the United States and you're not considered white, if we're all equal, why should it matter that you're not white? Because we're all the same. I don't know. That's just how I see it. How do you guys see it? Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this video, share this video. Definitely consider subscribing to this channel if you've seen more than a few videos that you liked here. Click on the notification bell so you know when I put up another video. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post.